Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about Leetcode problem 73, set matrix zeros. So this is a very popular problem. It is from blind 75 list. Yeah, I hope you can enjoy this question. I'm going to use two methods. So because this is in place, you must do it in place. Yeah, so it means when we gonna change some values, we should not use another DP or matrix. We don't need to return anything because we're gonna make the operations in place. Yeah. So here is a follow-up. Could you devise a constant space solution? So I will try two methods. I will not try the brute force because the brute force will be n square if n is the length of the matrix. Yeah, it will be n square. But let me check. Yeah, but for my second method, I will use O m times n. And also for the third method, it is just O m times n. But the third method, the space is just O1. Yeah, I will use a constant space solution for the third method. I'm not going to use the brute force method because the brute force is just like this. You're gonna define another DP array. If you find zeros, you put rows and columns to zeros. And you find another zero, you put rows and columns to zeros. Yeah, that will take much more time. Yeah, now let me explain in the whiteboard about my second and third method and then go to the code editor to finish the coding. Now let's say in the whiteboard, if we have a matrix like this, yeah, so this is the row and column. If we have a row and column, we want to put the row index and column index into our set if we find a zero. Yeah, if we find a 0 point, so in the row set, so we're gonna put a 1 inside because the index is 1. And also in the column set, we're gonna put so this is a column set, so we're gonna put a 1 inside the set. So after that, I'm going to loop through the matrix. So if I find anything, any index that is in row set or column set, so for example, this is inside the row set and this is inside the column set, then I'll set those points to zeros and then just return the result. So this is for the second method. I'm going to use actual memory. I'm going to use a set, or you can use array. It's also the same. Yeah, and the third method is I'm going to use the constant space. So how should we use the constant space? As we can see, if we use the set, instead we can use the first rows and first columns as our set. So for the first row, I'm going to check if there's a, for example, it's this one. Yeah, for the left side. If there's a 0, I'm going to put a 0 to my first row. If there's a 0 in the first column, I'm going to put it in the first column. If this 0 is in the I'm sorry, this is the second row, I'm going to put it in the second row and second column. Yeah, and after that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just loop through this matrix. So if there is a 0, I'm going to put everything for zeros for this row. And if there's a 0 in this column, I'm going to put every zeros in this column. But yeah, in this way, it might pollute the row or column. So if there is a 0, for example, there has already be a 0, it might pollute this row or column. So I have to check if this row or column has a 0 or not, because if it has a 0, so this row or this column should always be 0. Yeah, so I have to check if I polluted or not. So this is the special case. It is not polluted. So for example, if here is a 0, yeah, so for this I'm going to put it, and for this one I'm going to put it all zeros. Yeah, for example, if at this point I have a 0, so this line will be 0, this line will be 0. Yeah, let me go to the code editor to finish the coding. Yeah, for example, this is a 0, and here will always be this kind of zeros. For the first method, I'm going to use row and column set. Yeah. For row and column set, I'm going to define toSet. And I'm going to define a row and column as R and C. So this is the length of the matrix, and C is the length of the matrix 0. It's the column, the length of the column. I'm going to use for R in range R, and for C in range capital C. So if matrix R C equals to 0, I'm going to put it in my row and column set. So row should add this R, and column should add this C. After adding, I'm going to use another loop. Yeah, it's totally the same, but I'm going to loop through the set. So for R in row, for C in column, if this R equals to 0, or column this C equals to 0, I'm going to set the matrix RC equal to 0. So this is the first method. Let me check if it works. Yeah, for R in row and for C in column. Yeah, I have to check from the matrix. I have to check from the matrix because for this one, I didn't do anything. I have to check from the matrix. So for R in range R, for C in range C, if this R in my row set, or this C in my column set. Yeah, I have to check one by one. Then I can set matrix RC to 0. Now let's check if it works. Yeah, so this idea is we put rows and column index into the set, and then we are going to loop through the matrix. Yeah, if any index is inside the row set or inside the column set, we're gonna set this matrix RC to 0. Now let me submit it to check if it really works. Yeah, now let's try the third method. I'm going to put it in constant place. Yeah, and only OM plus N space. Yeah, and here is the OM plus N space. Yeah, because I use a row set and column set. But now I'm going to use a constant space. So for the constant space, I'm going to use the first row and first column as our array for memorization of other points. Yeah, I have to check if this first column or first row and first column if it has a 0 or not. Because if it has a 0, for example, if it has for this one there is no zeros, it means okay, we can just check the right result. But what about for the first row? Yeah, so this is the first row and this is the first column. it has zeros. Yeah, and then I'm going to check what's inside. Yeah, for example, I'm going to put all these ones as zeros, but yeah, but for my purpose, I'm going to use the first row and first column as my actual memory. Yeah, actually it's not actual memory. It is in place memory for the first row and first column. It means I'm not going to use this zero to check the rows or column. I'm only going to use something, yeah, something below the first row and at the right side of the first column, because in that way I'm going to check if there's any zeros and then I put it to the row and column. I'm not going to use these two zeros. This is why I have to check if there's a zero or not, because after that I'm going to check these zeros. If there is zeros, I'm going to set this first row to 0 and this first column to 0. Yeah, now let me code it to check if the solution is right. Yeah, so basically it should be, I'm going to check the row 1 has 0. I'm going to set two variables, and row column has 0. So this should be false. Yeah, if it has 0, I'm going to set it to true, and then I'm going to use R and C as the line of the matrix and the line of matrix 0 as the column. And then I'm going to loop through the column and rows and columns. So for R in range R, and for C in range C as column. So if matrix RC equals to 0, yeah, so if I find a 0, for example, yeah, this one or this one, if I find a 0, any, yeah, you can say any pictures, if I find a 0, so I'm going to check if it is if this R equals to 0, because if R equals to 0, so the row 1 has a 0 should equal to true. Yeah, I'm going to check if this C equal to 0. So the column 1 has a 0 should be true. This means the column has a 0. Yeah. And then I'm going to put the values inside the first row and first column. So if somewhere like this one, matrix RC equal to 0, so my matrix R0 should equal to 0, and matrix C0C equal to 0. Yeah, why I'm going to do that? Because, for example, if this is a 0, I'm going to set this place as a 0 and this place as a 0. Yeah, because for the next loop, I'm going to check before this, just in the sub place in these areas, I'm going to check. Yeah, how can I check? I'm going to use this row and this column to check, and then set all them to zeros. Yeah, so in that way, I will complete this question. Yeah, now let me just complete this part. So this part will be for R in range 1 to R, and for C in range 1 to column. So if this, yeah, if the I'm going to check. So if the matrix R0 equal to 0 or matrix 0C equal to 0. This is my meaning. If this one has a 0 or here has a 0, I'm going to set the row or column to 0. So the matrix RC should equal to 0. Yeah, so this part is very important. And then I'm going to check the final part. If I didn't check, let me run it to check what's gonna happen. Yeah, as you can see, the first case passed because in the first image there's no zeros in the first row or first column. It is okay. We're gonna just finish it. But what about the second one? It is wrong. Yeah, as you can see, the second part is totally wrong. So we have to check if the first row or first column has a 0 or not. Because this is because we've already used the first row and first column as our memory. Yeah, as our in-place memory to solve the problem. But if before it is not a 0, after that we set a 0, it may cause problems. Let's see what's the result. Yeah, so you see what happened? Because here in this loop we're gonna just form this subpart. Yeah, except the first row and first column. In the subpart, we are going to check if there is any zeros. So in the subpart, we didn't. Yeah, in the subpart, we found some zeros. It is 2 and 5 will be set to 0. As you can see, this one. Yeah, this is the second row. This one is 0 and this one is 0. But except that, the first row and first column we didn't set yet. Yeah, what should we do? Yeah, we should check if the first row has a 0 or the first column has a 0. If it has, we're gonna set the first row all to zeros, and then the first column all to zeros. Yeah, now let me finish this part. Actually, it should be quite easier. Yeah, so this is common sense. Because from the beginning we didn't use this part, and after that we finished all our operations. We have to check the first rows and first columns. Yeah, because before we didn't check that. We have to check all together. Because here we only checked the sub matrix. We didn't check first row or first columns. Now we are going to check it. How should we check? So if first row 1 has zeros, yeah, if this is row 1, there's a 0 inside, yeah, it means this row 1 has zeros. What are we gonna do? We're gonna put all columns in row 1 to 0. So for C, in raise columns, and matrix, this R should be 0, yeah, because it's the first row. This 0C should equal to 0. Similarly, we need to check the first column. So now let's check the first column. So if column 1 has 0, yeah, so for example, this one, the column 1 has 0, we are going to put its rows inside this column to 0. Yeah, so for R in raise capital R, and here should be R and 0. So we're gonna put this first column to 0. Yeah, now let me run it to check if it really works. Some local one has 0. Row 1, column 1. Did I do something wrong? Row 1, row column. Yeah, this should be column 1. I'm going to define column 1. Yeah, and column 1. Now let me run it to check if it is okay. Yeah, as you can see, it works. Now let me submit it to check if it can pass all the testing cases. Yeah, as you can see, it passed all the testing cases and it's pretty fast. So thank you for watching. If you think this is helpful, please like and subscribe. I will upload more Leetcode problems like this.